I've been learning intensively English for 2 weeks. Today I will show you my strategy behind my English and my motivations why I do it. My first motivation was to improve my English because I wasn't satisfied with my results that I got. I complained about my speaking skills, I complained about my understanding, I complained about these results that I've received. Moreover, I wanted to prove myself that I would like to speak better because I knew deeply I was supposed to do something about it. I should have taken proactive actions to change the thing. It is one thing that is important. My motivation came from my downsides of this language. I've always neglected my writing and I said to myself, I've had enough of this. And it was another reason to keep going, to face this challenge, to embrace this disadvantage that was supposed to be improved. But the last motivation that I had, and it was something what could have an impact, is the fact that English costed me a lot of mental energy. When I wanted to watch something in English, I was completely exhausted. I preferred to watch in my native language. Moreover, I felt better about doing something else. I was discouraged to watch something in English because I was more entertained in my native language. Here is the truth. Let's discuss my methods that I use on a daily basis to improve my English. It's worth pointing out that I didn't use a lot of methods. I prefer choose simplicity over complexity. The first one is called copywriting paraphrasing. This exercise relies on that I choose an article, then I try to change an original author's thought so that it could be passed on the same way. But this thought should be conveyed similarly and I'm not gonna change its meaning. I have two different ways how I do it. The first way, I take one paragraph that I do is rewriting it, or a second option is rewrite this part and add my example or mention what is important. This brings us to the another method. It is writing essays. Before, I needed to prepare topics that I was going to write. I asked ChatGPT for questions that it has generated for me. Then I could have easy topics to write about. What I do here is write in a structured way. I just write an essay. I look for arguments for a claim and against. I use Peel framework, which I've shown you recently. My beginning of a lesson begins with reflecting on arguments that I'm gonna use. Subsequently, I move on the writing and conclusion about the topic and my perspective on issue. At the end of the essay, I check my errors in terms of collocation and grammatical mistakes. I make a lot of them in writing. I asked ChatGPT what I've done badly. It shows my errors. I try to pay close attention to this because AI makes a lot of mistakes, and sometimes it's hard to say whether it's improved correctly or not. Picked up mistakes I put in my error log. Let's move on to the grammar exercise. I prefer fast grammatical lessons. It takes 20 minutes on one grammatical structure. I use AI for this. Let's say I wanna get an explanation of how works genitive in Russian. I ask ChatGPT for explaining me theory. What is the most important when it comes to this topic? It takes usually max 5 minutes. Then I wanna get 70 to 100 correct sentences generated by AI with genitive. My goal is to read them out loud. We wanna allow our brain to detect the pattern of understanding this specific grammatical structure. I do it for 5 to 10 minutes. At the end of the lesson, I have a list of sentences translated in my native language, and my exercise relies on that. I try to translate it into my target language, then English. It's gonna take 5 to 10 minutes. It was dependent on how my lesson looked like. When it comes to my vocabulary, I use Anki as a method of learning. When it comes to Anki, I create sentences with new words that I don't know. I usually collect them through content, through frequency lists, or sometimes I look for random words. Everything is put in my Notion page for flashcards. Then my task is to create as many sentences as possible during 30 minutes of my lesson. Another method of learning are my speaking exercises that I could share with you on this channel. Here I'm gonna break it down what I actually do. The first method is answering to quick conversation questions. What it looks like. I have a long list of questions that I respond quickly. I give myself 1 or 2 minutes to answer. This exercise was deliberately created this way because I wanted to improve my quick responses. When it comes to the second method, I also use conversation questions, but in this time I answer 3 times one question, but it is with feedback. I use for this Gemini. I just record myself and then I transcript my speech and I put in Gemini because it allows me to transcript my speech in a written language. I wanna get feedback from AI to find out what I could say better and how I can improve my statement in terms of saying something more advanced. The last thing that I do when it comes to speaking is self-talk. I just talk to myself. It usually takes 30 minutes when I have a lesson. I can say about whatever topic I want. If I have no idea about the topic, I can generate a long list of conversational questions. The key feature of my learning is something what helped me a lot recently. It is the error log where I can look for my mistakes that I've made, whether it was with speech or writing or even during other activities. It is the place where I collect incorrect sentences. Moreover, I do one additional exercise that helped me the most to notice what didn't work. I saw that I didn't make enough progress. I've decided to add this small thing, and it changed a lot because I was exposed to my mistakes, and I felt like it could help me to delete these mistakes with my writing and speech. Yes, I didn't get rid of all of them, but I felt a significant difference. But this method relies on that you have one column and another, and one column is with wrong written sentences, and another is with that version that I wanna originally say, or this version can be improved. It works like this. Let's move on to the input. I have two sources of it. I watch videos on YouTube and I listen to audiobooks on Audible. When it comes to YouTube, I usually watch with speed 1.5. It was done deliberately because I wanted to understand faster speech, that sometimes it's hard to get it, but I felt like it could be a bit challenging. I felt like it would be so useful to add a challenge. I am focused to watch long form content or something about science and interviews. It is what I watch the most. When it comes to audiobooks, I watch with speed 1.2 because I consume them to learn something, and it is a good way. I'm not focused as much to learn new vocabulary, but I check words from time to time, and I also put them in my Notion page. Sometimes I speak about what I've watched on this lesson. At the end of the lesson, I try to summarize the most important points or point out what was the most important in my opinion. It takes 5 to 10 minutes usually. It would be useful to mention something about routine. In first week, I learned 2 hours and a half. In second week, I learned 3 hours a day, 6 times. The routine you can see on the screen. As you can see, it was completely different, and there weren't almost the same days because I could take up different activities, but it was completely similar. But sometimes I did something a bit less or more. Here is the thing. But you can see now my routine for third week and fourth week, and it's gonna be more challenging, but I'm glad about it that I'm gonna watch more, and it's not gonna be so challenging as it was. I feel like I adapted to these hours and it's easier to learn more, but you're gonna see how it's gonna work. You can ask why you have fewer activities in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th week of this process. The answer is simple. I wanted to test Anki, how it's gonna work, and here is the reason behind it, but I noticed that it would be pointless to put these activities, but some activities I can end a bit earlier, but it doesn't mean that I'm not gonna feel something in this place. But we are gonna find out soon what it's gonna be, but I can say one thing, it's not gonna be English. And it is a good reason to say thank you for this video and until to the next summary of the week. But then I can provide to you with valuable insights that can change your life. Thank you and see you to the next.